Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. It is August 7th, time of recording, and we've got a bulk of an episode for you today to get through some city news, some Leagues Cup updates, some cup dates. We've got the U.S. men's national team elimination at the Olympics and the state of the team overall. Tim Ream heading over to Charlotte. And then we've got a quick update on an MLS kind of team building rule change that we thought you all might like to hear about, but at a fun level, not every single detail. This isn't your group right here, but we're gonna make it dangerous. You'll know enough to be dangerous. But Justin, how we doing this Wednesday?
I feel like that's what we usually do. I don't have the time, neither do you, and neither do I want to get into the nitty-gritty details. That is for the detailed articles that the team puts out and some other podcasts. It's not our forte. So we'll give you the highlights, everything you need to know to be dangerous, to be, I don't know if you already said that, to be in the office, talking at the water cooler, what you need to talk about. That's us.
Yeah, think of us as Sports Center. There you have these very long, depthy shows that do all the analysis for everything. We do a little bit of that for sure, but we're Sports Center. We're gonna kick it around the table, make sure you get what you need to know and what you came here for. So let's get to the biggest topic in my mind, Justin. Obviously, since we last recorded a week ago now, we bid farewell to Tim Parker, our first ever goal scorer, our vice captain, a leader for the team, a fixture in the community, the founder of Parker Pilsner with four hands. So much. I could rattle off a huge resume in literally just a year and a half, basically, that he spent with us from a playing perspective. I was really bummed, man. And this came out of nowhere, it felt like, but from the insider sources that I was able to talk to, it is a direct response to the breakdown in contract negotiations that the team had started with him in his camp to get the ball rolling on what an extension would look like. And I think if you're Tim Parker, your ambition is different from what St. Louis is looking for, right? St. Louis is looking to find that next spot and keep paving the way forward. We're kind of doing a little retooling right now in this team. And Tim Parker is looking for what's probably his final contract. Maybe he'll get a stop contract like a year after this one. But he's looking for hopefully some decent term, probably 2 to 3 years, and obviously some good money to go with it. And City doesn't sound like they were willing to meet those demands. So you ship him off now and you get something in return. And who do we get in return, Justin?
Mr. Kessler. So we're talking about this when you're looking at it for Henry Kessler, and Jake already mentioned it with the $600K going over there, but people are, I think, trying to understand why. So with Kessler, we'll get him we're locked him up for this season, next season, and club option for the 2026 season as well. So that's $600K in GAM. I would say the majority of that, Jake, is one, because we have a locked up contract. So Tim Parker, when he finishes out at New England Revolution this season, they'll have to re-sign him. And then also, two, Henry Kessler is only 26 years old. That's 5 years younger than Tim Parker. And it's a guy that's a little bit more up and coming right now. So there's a kind of a mix between this, and you're like trying to think about this. And we'll talk about it, how Tim Ream fits into all this as well. But ultimately, I think we're looking a little bit more towards the future on this. I know when you look at Nilsson's already 30 as well. So we grabbed Jake Gerwood-Reich as well, who seems to be playing a little bit more in the holding midfield when he comes on, but could easily be slotted back into a center back position or rotate through the left back. But when you look at Henry Kessler, he's a guy that I think that is just going to fit right in immediately, and a younger guy, and I think it's looking forward for the team.
Yeah, to me, this was an opportunistic transaction. So obviously, we deal Tim Parker and $600K in GAM. In return, we get Kessler with his term, with his better age. Also, he was on Lutz's list for a long time now. And when you're on Lutz's list, he's going to probably do a lot to make sure he pries you onto the team. So we know that he's been on his radar for quite a while now. And the other thing for me is that New England had a really, really rough start to the campaign. They've picked things up somewhat recently, but not going to be enough to really have a successful season by New England standards. And Kessler's been on some successful teams. And so I think for him and for them, they're kind of going through a little bit of a retooling themselves to get ready for the end of this season and next season already. And for him, it's a chance to go on to a different, challenge. He's been in Northeast for almost his entire life. And he's got a lot of good quality. And I think New England was looking to take a chance and bring some more experience into the mix while they do this little bit of retooling. And we get someone that I think has a lot more upside. And don't get me wrong, I love Tim Parker, but you're looking at pretty much the finished product. And the finished product was more than good for us. Obviously, he was a, Defender of the Year finalist last year and was in some of the best 11s as well. So what he did for us, especially at this point in his career, was fantastic. I think we've squeezed every bit of value out of that contract we did, with especially not having to pay all of his wages, given Houston was still paying him as well last season. So I really do feel like the sides all, come out on a good end on this deal, but it sucks, right? I mean, because he was such a fixture, and he always will be. I'll never forget the memories of him scoring that goal in Austin. You and I getting the pick with him. We just threw up in the gram for anyone that hasn't seen that. Just love Tim Parker. He's such a hard guy to not like.
I would say, regardless of what your thoughts are of him on the field, he was one of the best humans that has been on this team. And I would say leadership-wise, this guy's been a journeyman through the MLS for I don't know even how many years, 7+. And just getting that life when he came back to St. Louis and that starting position. I remember, Jake, when we were doing different podcasts before, we were doing interviews, people were talking about, everyone asked us, like, why do you guys think you got Tim Parker? Like, the dude's old, he's slow, he's not going to do anything. Proved everybody wrong, and he did it on and off the field. Obviously, the Parker Pilsner, and you'd see him out in the community doing autograph signings, anything in the community as well. So that's going to be a hole that we will have to fill. That's not just stat driven. I think that's a locker room guy right there as well. And you could tell that it hit him pretty hard with the tweet and the Instagram. Saw he just went to Wright's Tavern before he was getting out of town for his last dinner. So the man loves St. Louis, and I think it's tough to see him go. Unfortunately, it is a business move for City, but I couldn't thank him enough.
So what are we getting in return? Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see Henry Kessler, and they won't be able to see Parker through League's Cup. They're both cup tied already to both teams, respectively. But Parker was $1 million center back, making quite a lot of money, and so is Kessler. So you're thinking, are we just kind of doing a straight swap? But really, the profiles, I think, are very different when you look at the two defenders between Parker and Kessler. And I think that's good, because to me, Parker and a guy like Nilsson, you'd normally think would be his partner when healthy, which is rarely at this point. The guy's hamstrings are made of thread. You want to have those profiles that complement each other, not necessarily are duplicates. And to me, Henry Kessler, when I look at over the past 365 days, he is a guy that is known to get in the way of shots and blocks much more so than Tim Parker is. He is a guy that when there is that ball played upfield, Tim Parker is breathing down the back of his defender, trying to step up, get a leg in there, maybe knock it away from him. Henry Kessler is the guy that's stepping off and making sure to win that second ball, or maybe providing coverage as Tim Parker steps up. So for me, Nilsson and Kessler feel like a much better match than Tim Parker was in the first place. Kessler's a guy that also likes to be the ball. His touch count will be higher. His pass count will probably be higher as well. He may not be playing the incisive passes that we saw Tim Parker playing, but that just kind of gives you a sense of the difference in profile. But again, when you look at like the circle chart that always goes around social media of the things that these guys are good at in terms of goal output and passing and defense, Nilsson and Kessler are very complementary. Their strengths lie in very different sides.
Yeah, I will say the one thing you're going to notice this about Kessler as well is he's not an aerial guy as much as Tim Parker was. I mean, Tim Parker did not lose a head ball, and if he did, he made sure he got the guy instead. You're not going to see that as much with Kessler, but you're going to actually get to see him be a guy that can make passes through passing lines, through the forward lines, and get on the ball. So that's where they get that complementary. If Nilsson's still huge, he'll win some head balls. He's still up there for, I would say, top 20%, 15% in MLS and winning aerial duels. But that's not Kessler's game. Kessler's a little bit more on the touch, using the ball with his feet, getting block shots. So I think they're going to work very well together.
Yeah, and Lutz literally mentioned his vision as being one of the strengths of his game. It'll be deceiving to you because he is 6'4". He's a big human, but he's not a thick human like Tim Parker. He's not built like a horse, but he is a tall dude. My one concern I have, Justin, heading into this is injuries. Not that he's been injury plagued throughout his whole career, but he missed 30 games last season with a hamstring injury. And they're like, okay, I just heard Jake talk about Nilsson's hamstrings, and now we know that Kessler had surgery on his hamstrings last season and missed basically the entire season. What's the deal with the hammies on the center back line? I'm just hoping that these guys got it out of the way and we're good to go now. It sounds like he's been pretty good and healthy this year, maybe some small things here and there, but not a nagging injury like we're seeing Nilsson deal with. So that's my one little back of the head concern I have going into it. But again, I'm excited to see Kessler don the City Red and see him back at City Park to start the season again for us once League's Cup is over. But man, I do want to give, again, a huge ode and shout out to Tim Parker for being that dude on and off the field. And we'll get to see him again here very shortly in New England in September on the 7th.
Yeah, we'll be heading up there for that game, Jake. I let him know that in our DM once we posted the picture today. But something that has also been swirling in the news, more centrally around the center back position, is Tim Ream now coming to Charlotte. As you mentioned that already, finalized a deal with them, now 36 years old, on a free transfer from Fulham since his contract was up. Sources tell Give Me Sport, who is Tom Bogart, a friend of the pod, on the contract. He is through 2026 with an option for 2027. He'll be going on 38 and on 39 years old through the end of his 2026. So when people are asking, it is awesome to see Tim Ream come home to the U.S. in a figuratively put way, because he's not coming back to St. Louis specifically for home. It's good to see him coming to the MLS. The one thing that it just didn't really fit the City profile, as we're already looking at Nilsson, who's 30, Parker was 31. Didn't really want to add a 36-year-old into the mix. I think it's an injury-prone thing, and also trying to look forward, not only on a short term of possibly getting injured as you get older, but also looking at who's going to be that center back for the future. So it is tough, because I would love to see some of these St. Louis guys come home. When you look at Tim Ream, you look at Tommy Barlow, Josh Sargent down the line as well. But just right now, it doesn't really fit for City.
It doesn't. And I saw a lot on social media when the news is finally confirmed. How did we drop the ball? What's Lutz doing? It sucks that he's going to play for Charlotte. Like, you would, theoretically love to see him be in St. Louis, but it doesn't fit right now. If we had a really young core of defenders, I think he would be a great asset to the team, just like he is for the men's national team right now for the U.S. But it doesn't make sense for us. Again, if he sees out his entire contract plus the club option, let's just say that somehow Charlotte makes it deep in the playoffs during 2026 season, which will be right after his birthday. He'll be 40 playing for Charlotte FC, which is, in soccer, absolutely absurd. You're an elder to be playing the game still at a high level at that age. But you know what? The St. Louisan in me hopes that he's doing it. He has had a hell of a career, 312 appearances for Fulham, been there for 9 years, 126 for Bolton. So I think he comes back to the U.S. having led All-Americans ever in the amount of championship appearances, and he's 10th most in non-goalkeepers for Premier League appearances. And Charlotte's getting a good one. He can still do it at a high level. Fulham was kind of stalling a little bit on the deal until they got a replacement in the door to replace him. But he is moving into Charlotte, and they have a decent, kind of core right now already. And they're looking good for the playoffs. 37 points in 25 matches. They're probably going to get there. One question I have, Justin, is he's leaving Fulham, Craven Cottage, all the fame and history around there and all the Premier League to go play on turf. I hope that does not act as a significant detriment to those knees and his career, but we've seen those types of things happen.
He'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. Just solely because I just put on cleats after tearing my ACL 2 years ago and played on turf this weekend. They're holding up, Jake, and I think that guy's definitely treating his body way better than I am right now in my career. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for him to be back in MLS. I wish it was going to be for St. Louis, but obviously, like we talked about, it wasn't the right fit. So getting out of that and all the transfer news and everything that has just recently happened, let's do a quick recap of this Juarez FC Leagues Cup game. So we already knew that we were through after Juarez beat FC Dallas. So basically then the question was, do we care about this game? Is what people asked me. And the answer is yes, as we talked about in the previous episode, because if we lost, which we ended up doing, now if we win this next game against Portland, we have to face the winner of Club America game, which is likely going to be Club America, who is the best team in Liga MX. So this game did matter. However, we did see a pretty heavy rotation, at least in the back five when you include a goalie for that. So we started with Lund, Watts, Hebert, Yarrow, and Nerwinski in front of Lund. And then we kind of moved up the field, and I would say it's probably more of a consistent starting lineup you'll see right now until Klaus and Alm and some of these other guys get healthy. But Leuven and Durkin in front of the back four with Hartl, Toyert, Indy, and Simon Betcher up top, which I was pretty excited to see from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, you got some guys some rest, and you got some other guys some good reps in a game that, like you said, it meant something, but we were already through, so you didn't have a lot riding on it. Ultimately, I was okay with it. I think if you're going for the gut punch and trying to win the group, obviously not probably the best 11 to roll with, but let's kind of get into it. I mean, for me, the start I thought was pretty positive. A lot of good probing passes and runs being made in the final third. Leuven, finding, I think, his most comfortable position, knowing that Durkin's, somewhere around him, looking to clean up all the trash and facilitate that while he gets to be on the ball and facilitate our play. Lund, I thought, had a pretty good heck of a game, only allowing 1 goal, obviously no saves in the PK shootout. But between him and Kyle Hebert, I thought it was a strong defensive showing. And if anything, you got to be pumped to hear about Kyle, because you're going to need Kyle down the stretch. For right now, all that we know about Nilsson is you can't count on him from an availability perspective. So if I'm looking at the rest of the season right now, assuming our current roster, I'm probably thinking that Hebert is, the center back pairing with Kessler as we restart the MLS campaign, because I can't count on Yaro. He's shown me too many things to know that he has good games and he has bad games, and he's got great athleticism to make up for some of his mistakes that he makes. But I'm not convinced. And I thought Kyle had a very, very strong game, and Juarez definitely gave us some issues. But Justin, what do you think about Simon Betcher again? I thought that dude is just possessed out there.
Dude, we've talked about it. I think when it's a mix of someone that's hungry and also young and talented. And that's what Simon Betcher is right now. He's trying to prove himself. I mean, obviously, he's kind of bounced around from team to team, as you've seen him since he's came into the MLS, going from the Whitecaps and having that record of 82 minutes in his first ever 4 goals, then going overseas, now coming back. You think he's trying to find that kind of home, and St. Louis is a perfect spot for that. Not only for the location being a SLU grad, roll Bills, but then also for a team that's been struggling to score some goals. And this is a guy that's coming in. He's going to work his tail off. He's already got some chemistry with some of the guys. You look at Johnny Klein, and now it looks like he's starting to connect very well with Toyhert and Hartel, and then also Indy in this game as well. He's kind of shifting and not only just getting on the ball and creating chances, but also moving off the ball, making runs, pressing, working hard. I think he's looked incredible so far.
Yeah, I am jazzed with what I'm seeing from Betcher. He is a beast, and he got his goal. I mean, come on. The corner kick, great facilitated delivery from Leuven, whipped in near post ball. Hartel doing a little bit of the devil's work, kind of doing a little bit of a screen on his man to make sure Betcher can get that ball through. Betcher literally just looks at the ground, makes sure to get a flick on this, and he flicks it near post. And that's a tough finish. I know it's a close angle, but to do a little half volley on that ball at such a tight angle, that is a striker's goal. And I loved the celebration afterwards. You could tell how much it meant to him, and to do it in front of the home fans, I'm sure was something even more. Unfortunately, we were not able to hold on to that lead as we went up 1-0 in the 58th minute. In the 62nd, we conceded with a kind of a half clearance, we'd call it, I'd say, by Watts. Fell to one of their attackers, who took it down and hit a strike that just snuck past Toyhert and Watts, and an outstretched Hebert into the far post. That guy could not have put that anywhere else on goal. It skips off the post and in. It's an unfortunate kind of low pace shot, but just placed perfectly where no one can get a toe or a boot to it. And of course, Loon's huge frame somehow couldn't get a tip to it. I don't think I fault him for that, but that's when you see just rolling so slow. You're like, come on, someone, you just got to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a tough one for us. And not only that, but then obviously once that happens, then with Leagues Cup, we go straight into PKs. And there, Jake, and I know you had some more specific comments on this. I know one, kind of the word for it, but I'm not going to say it on the pod. Some of the joking manner of the goalkeeper on FC Juarez. He was doing that before the game. I forgot who put out a tweet, but he was kind of giving it to the fans ahead of time. He's doing the look over here and dance over here. I don't think it threw any of our guys off, but it was kind of funny to see. But unfortunately, we just didn't take very good PKs. And Loons also had a chance to save one, at least the one that went off his face, and maybe two that he got in their hand to, and just couldn't do it.
Yeah, that was a combination of a lot of bad things. I think for as good as a game as that he had, 8 saves on 9 shots on target, you got to be the man between the pipes on PKs. You just have to be. And some guys have it in them and some don't. And some goalies are known to be really good PK specialists. And he was not, unfortunately. And that didn't help us, obviously. And our goal scoring on the PKs was bad as well. I thought Hartel specifically got a little bit too cute with his. He did bury his one in the prior game, but the stutter did not work this time. And their goalie, I'm watching this and I'm like, as a former goalie, I hate the people that do this. And, they're pointing to where they want the person to go and they're throwing their hands up and they're saying stuff. And I get it. It's part of the game for some people. But game respects game, and that goalie did make sure to point out, all right, he's like, that was a good one. When Thor stepped up for his and just drilled this ball like it had abused him his whole life into the top corner, he did turn around and the goalie. And the goalie's like, yep, no, that was a good one. That was a good one. And when you can do that, I'm okay with all of that housery that comes from those types of people. But man, if we're going to beat a game that means something with PKs, we've got to put on a better showing than that, because that was rough.
And one thing I want to talk about, Jake, that was off the field on this, that you and I both, and people kind of blew up on Twitter about, was what was going on with Blum with this. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, Jake. I noticed when I was watching the replay that, obviously Blum was not actually, maybe I'm going to share. Blum was not actually on the field with the team, but everybody's like, oh, he just decided to not go out there. If you watch this first video I'm sharing right now, look in the bottom right. Blum is not even on the team when we're talking about who's going to be taking the PKs. Here's the squad. Here's Blum down here in the bottom right corner that's sitting down here and just watching everybody out there. And I think now you'll see Hackworth walk back and see Blum is sitting there. The next video that I'm about to show right here is then once the PKs, everybody's on the touchline looking at this, you can see Hackworth kind of telling people to get up on the line and that they should step up and be here with the team. I don't think he was talking to Blum, because then you can see right here, Blum's about to step up and he kind of holds him and is like, no, you're going to go sit right back down. This is my opinion. Maybe a hot take, Jake. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think there's something going on there. Obviously, he's upset that he was not getting the playing time, especially with Jake Gerwood-Wright getting in there. But I would like to know a little bit more about this situation. Was it actually, Blum obviously chose not to be on the field in the huddle when we're talking about who's going first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And then after that, if he was going to step up to the touchline, do you think Hackworth actually told him to go sit back down and said, hey, if you're not with the team the first part, you're not doing it this time? Or do you think that Blum was like, I'm going to stay anyways?
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think he's definitely frustrated with his role on the team right now. He's played actually a fair amount of minutes since I'd say Hackworth even got in, playing in central defensive midfielder role once at least for Durkin being suspended and acquitting himself okay in those games. And then he is not the first to feature here. When you throw in Jake Gerwood-Wright, who's got him in terms of age. And as of right now, I think he's probably the next off the bench when you consider a Durkin replacement. So Blum is probably looking at this saying he was the guy last year for a good little stretch there where he was tenacious, he was winning balls, he was a destroyer in midfield. And he just hasn't refound that for whatever reason. And he can see the writing on the wall, I'm sure. And some people choose to blame others. And some people choose to look at themselves a little inward and work on it and force the coach's decision to make them get playing time. And Blum feels like more of the former, unfortunately. And as Hackworth, absolutely. Like you said, he missed two things. The second one totally being a response to the first, in my opinion. At first, blow the whistle. Everyone, literally every coach, player, anyone in the bench area is up and talking, getting water, saying, okay, let's go, guys. Let's get ready for these PKs. Let's do this. Let's get the point. And then you have one guy that's just not part of it. Culturally, that's not going to work. That's not going to work for many, if any, coaches in any sport at all. And then he sees, you see the second video that you showed, Justin, where he attempts to get up for everyone on the bench that forms the line when the PKs do start to get taken. And if I'm Hack, and it's exactly what he does, says, nope, you're not going to join us now. You weren't here before. You made your decision already. You're not going to just fake it and join everyone now. So fully endorse Hack on that. And I love it because what would he talk about when Carnell was relieved? Culture, locker room issues, factions. This is how you purge that, is you take a iron fist to guys that are not part of it.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I don't know, was Blum just not paying attention with the whole Sam Adeniran thing? When things blew up, that's not how you get playing time, buddy. I bet you $20 right now, Jake, that Blum will not even be on the bench for this next game, because that is a cultural issue that needs to be fixed and needs to be fixed quick. It's not like Hackworth's not going to be a guy like, oh, Blum, you really showed me. I'm going to go throw you out there in the starting 11. So I don't really know what the thought process was on that. I'm sure he's frustrated, but way better ways to handle that behind the scenes. So, Jake, I think that's enough about the FC Juarez recap. What about this Portland team now they're playing on Friday? Looking at this season more specifically for them, and this will be Friday at City Park at 7:30 p.m. This season, they are 8th in the West with 36 points, with an excellent home form and a poor away form, which is great for us. 49 goals for, 42 against, aka meaning they can score a lot, but they also concede a lot. I know that 49 goals for is literally 4th in the MLS, even though I think they're 14th in the Supporters' Shield standing. So it's a team that they've scored a ton, but they can't keep it out of their own net as well. Since May 25th, only 2 losses versus FC Dallas and LA Galaxy, and 2 draws versus Houston and us in 13 games played. Real quick, that's 4. That means they have 1-9, lost 2, and draw 2 in their last 13 total.
Yeah. No, this is definitely a good side.
And then I would also say back the last 2 times that we've played them as well, or last time we played them as well, was a 0-0 draw. They only allowed 2 shots on, or we only allowed 2 shots on goals. We just couldn't finish our chances. And otherwise, it's just been a pretty strong team, especially on the offensive end for them.
No, I would agree. Justin, some of the key players, in my opinion, too, looking at this. So Leagues Cup, they've been doing well so far. Obviously, they won the group. That's why we're playing them. We're the runner-up in our group. They defeated Club Leon 2-1 with a 90-minute winner, and they stomped Colorado 4-0, finished all 4 of their big chances. Key players for me, Jonathan Cabecita Rodriguez, who's a 31-year-old left winger, a Uruguayan DP. And then they have Evander Ferrer. We talked about, I remember like one of our early previews from last season as the 10, a Brazilian DP, 11 goals, 13 assists in 19 full 90s this season. I already mentioned Cabecita with 12 goals, 6 assists. Their whole attacking front is mouth-watering with Felipe Mora, who I didn't mention, and Santiago Morena. When you look at, the front 3 plus Evander sitting right beneath them, this is why they have all those goals beneath them. So if you're the defense, you're going to have your work cut out for you on Friday night against Portland, because they're going to bring the fire and you're going to have to answer. This might be a barn burner if we're looking in terms of goals, because our defense will face some serious challenges on Friday, in my opinion.
And Jake, when we're talking about the defense that will be facing off against this team, I'm going to bring us into our Hoffman brothers predicted starting 11. I like when I get to click it sometimes. I will say, obviously, we talked about this. Luntz was in the game last time because of Berkey's back spasms, which I think he's been dealing with a little bit since with the game right before the All-Star break as well. However, I think that he'll be ready to go in this now knockout style game on Friday night at City Park. So I'm going Berkey with a front or a back 4 in front of him as Reed, Yarrow, Hebert, and Totland. What are your thoughts?
I fully agree. You'd love to see, obviously, Kessler, he's cup tied. You can't play him. Obviously, no Parker anymore. I don't have heard anything about Nilsson at all. Could be on a different planet by now. So that's probably my back 4 as well. I think the left back and fullback, right back, totally speak for themselves. And then Hebert, I think, played himself into that. And not that we have many options at this point. So I think that's my back 4 as well. Moving up, Justin, would you make any changes to what we saw in the last match? In my opinion, no, which would mean Leuven Durkin, and then you have Toyert, Indy, and Hartel ahead of them, and you have Simon Betcher leading the line.
Yeah, the only one that you could possibly make is just lefty for lefty switch. If you want to do Thor for Indy, me personally, I don't know if Thor's the guy that you really, I think Indy does well here to play, because I think all 4 of those guys up top are a little bit more of 1 touch, 2 touch, bounce it off me, bounce it off you, up back through. And I think Indy does better in that role, but that could be a possibility where we see Thor get some minutes. Had a great strike in his PK, obviously, but not saying that that's the only reason he gets start, but it's some confidence builder. I think he's a guy that showed up that he can step up and hit it. I know Indy didn't get a chance to take one, so I don't think that it's necessarily that Indy has to go to the bench. But if we're looking at someone to come off, I don't think it's going to be Hartel or Toyert or Simon Betcher right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's very fair. And Hoffman Brothers obviously our presenting sponsor for 2024, and just delivering the goods at all times for all of your home services. It's a little bit cooler now in St. Louis, but these last 2 days were hell in a bottle. And I saw, I think, 5 different trucks, vans, vehicles of Hoffman Brothers serving my local community. And I'm literally just in Glendale here, and we are a big city, as you all know. So I know that Hoffman Bros are out there helping you all, keep cool and dry and whatever things you want to be within your own home under that roof. So make sure, whether that's in the cool and the break from the heat, or when you're at the very tippy top and you are sweating your tail off in your house and that feels wrong, make sure you call Hoffman Brothers at 314-664-3011 or visit them online at hoffmanbros.com. They are your lifeline. They are your friends. They will see you through these St. Louis summers.
Absolutely. I think it's no way. Could not have said it better myself, Jake. These are the guys that are going to come to your home, and women that are going to come to your home and just treat you with white glove service every time. It's a quick call, a quick answer, and a quick fix at a reasonable price as well. So reach out to Hoffman Brothers for all of your home needs. Jake, I'm going to talk a little bit about stats as well in this Portland game and things that kind of stand out to me. I think number 1 in here, Jake, which is kind of surprising and definitely I would say probably changing a little bit with our style now is we are number 2 in crosses per 90 in the MLS with just about 21, while Portland is just looking at 15 or so. And I would say, and that puts them 22nd in the MLS out of 29 teams. I would say that just generally, Jake, means that they're looking to attack more direct. And I think that shows with the goal and scoring output. These guys are looking to take guys on one-on-one and catch somebody trying to help on the other side and ball watch as they slip somebody else in. So this is a team that I don't think you're going to be seeing take it to the corners and whip balls in. They're going to be trying to come right at us and slip guys in behind.
Yeah, I would agree. And in the counters, I think numbers speak for themselves too. We're both teams that like to do the counters, but they a little bit more than us within the top 10 in all the MLS. So, no, I think you hit on some of the important things that I imagine, Justin. This team is also very comfortable in the dribble. We talked about their attack and how quality these strikers and wingers are, and they have got some guys that can do some pretty fantastic things with the ball. So you can't be jumping in on these guys. It will burn by you and use that pace as well. But the quality on the ball from that attacking front four is every bit of my focus, and I hope it's every bit of Hackworth's focus as we head into this one, because I think our attack has gotten a significant facelift over the past couple of weeks. And if you can fight fire with fire, that's why I go with my barn burner prediction here, because you're looking at two, we're kind of getting started with our attack with our new faces and our new bodies, but they've got it just humming already. And I think we can get there, but do we find that gear in this game to really keep pace with someone that's just frankly doing really well right now? So Justin, thinking about some bets, I haven't overly looked much at DraftKings or the lines of where we're going to sit here, but it looks like you might have pulled a couple for us to talk about here.
I did. So this is going to be a close matchup. Obviously, we know that it's a knockout game. I don't think either of these teams want to be going home. Obviously, I think we're pretty much out of the playoffs, not mathematically yet, but will be soon. And Portland is still fighting for a playoff spot, but I don't think they want to have a break from early August till early September. So we are on the money line, City at plus 140, or you could take Portland plus 155. So very close there with the draw at plus 285. The over-under jumps up. Instead of being at 2.5, it's at 3.5. The over being plus 110 and the under at minus 150. So Vegas also thinks there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. And I agree with them. And I'm going with my steady Eddie with St. Louis at home. The team total goals over 1.5 at minus 130. I think this is going to be an absolute lock for this team. We're going to have to be coming out firing. This is going to be a hard team to try to contain with the amount of firepower that they have up top. And I would love to see Toyer or Hartel get on the board right here with a nice Simon Besser assist or even a Johnny Klein assist at this point. But I need at least 2 goals for City to hit on minus 130.
I like that. And the winner will go on to take place against the winner of Club America and Atlas. If it's Atlas, our winner, I know at least if we win, we would host. If it's Club America, which is likely, we would not play host. We would go away to them. But you cannot look past Portland. Friday is going to be electric watching this team kick off at 7:30 local time here. Justin, 2 final topics as we get into the end of the show. Men's national team at the Olympics. It was a bummer to see them go out in the quarterfinals like they did to Morocco, who just absolutely stomped us. We looked tired. Couldn't adjust things tactically to get into this match, despite some of the good form we took into it in the last 2 games with Guinea and New Zealand. But I want to look at this just very bluntly. Is this success or failure to you? Just to give you some objective kind of facts here, this is the first time we made the knockouts since 2000. The Olympics, the first time we made the Olympics since 2008. So there is definitely some plus side there, and you get a lot of good young players, some meaningful minutes in games that frankly actually matter at the international level. That isn't throwing them into a World Cup game or a Copa America game, which I think is a big positive. But really, you look at it, we beat the teams that we should, and we lost against the teams that we really shouldn't, or at least it'd be a lot more even playing field with France and Morocco. So I think overall, it's really hard to put a success or failure to it, but I think for me, I listened to a podcast where Brian McBride spoke about this. I think it's probably a failure in the short term, but a success that if all of those guys can go on and at least a couple of them make it onto the first team and they bring that experience with them and how it felt to lose those types of matches and hopefully begin to utilize that experience in future matches where they are up against the wall. But what were your thoughts, Justin, on that?
I would say generally it's a slight success. I mean, just getting out of the group in the Olympics and getting to a knockout stage game is always good, better than what the first team did for Copa. So I will say on that point, I really wish, I thought this team had a little bit more in them. Love seeing Patrick Schulte from St. Louis out there and some of these young guys getting some big time minutes. But like you said, Jake, I think the the wins were good enough against teams that we should beat, but the losses, we should have been a lot closer in that France game, a lot closer in that Morocco game, that's for sure. And I think that's a little disheartening. But overall, it's good to see that we have some youthful guys that will be coming up through the chain. We obviously talked about it. The first team is already pretty young, but we will need to have some subs that are going to come and make an impact. And that team that we just saw in the Olympics, you're going to see probably 3 or 4 of those guys in the World Cup squad in 2026.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't want to drab on it, but yeah, definitely a bummer summer for the U.S. Soccer Federation for the men's side, getting grouped in Copa and then not making it as far or getting as far as you thought you might go in the Olympics. I guess that's how I would leave it with them. But final thing, Justin, before we round out here is just some quick kind of rule changes that we thought you all might care about that the MLS has announced. So 3 major rule changes. The first being calling it 6 prime roster spots. So clubs can now, I think starting next year, fully leverage 3 designated player spots and 3 U22 initiative player slots. Really trying to enhance the ability for these clubs to be able to sign and then also retain top talents. With that, they also brought some roster kind of construction flexibility. So you get your choice between 2 models. And I'm really curious where we're going to land here. I think I might know is there's the DP model where you can do up to 3 DPs and 3 U22 slots. And there's the U22 model, which is up to 2 DPs and 4 U22 slots and up to 2 additional $1 million in general allocation money. Looking at our roster, Justin, we've got Leuven, we've got Klaus, and we've got Hartel now. That's the 3 DPs. I don't see us being the 4 U22 until we could maybe buy down a Leuven or a Klaus. That'd be the only way that I think we could flex into the U22 side. But right now, yeah, I think we're pretty much locked into the 3 DP, 3 U22 if you want to use it.
Yeah, I would say right now when you look at it, I'm currently looking at the MLS player salaries that came out on April 25th, 2024. This is the most up-to-date version we've got for base salary. Berkey at 1.5 mil. We've got Leuven at 1.2. We had Parker at $1 mil, which is over the cap, which was like $680K. But now we're going to replace him with Kessler, who's being paid $1 mil as well. Nilsson 1.1 mil, and Joao Klaus at 1.2. So I do think that we're going to be holding at that 3 DP slot and then trying to buy some of this down. And I will say just generally around all of this, as people are thinking about it, why does MLS have these weird rules and why are they just now increasing them now? It's the Messi effect. We are getting more money. They're able to allocate more money and grow this league. And they know that right now, this is no longer a league that is looking for guys that are coming to finish their career in the last dying breath or season or two. These are guys that are coming over and looking to come over for the last 5 or 6 seasons of their career, and you're going to have to pay more money to get that. So I'm excited just to see that this is growing and that they're starting to put the money that they're creating revenue on from these massive games back into the pot.
Yeah, and the final rule I want to mention, Justin, I love where you took that there because that's big picture, and I'm going to finish there too, is the last thing they talked about was increasing allocation money from transfers. So now if you're a club, you can convert up to $3 million of transfer revenue into GAM, which is up from the previous about $1.2 million per transfer. So again, making that money usable in a way that's meaningful within this league. And I think all of this to say that this is the beginning to me. If we're not pushing the limits on this, even the pre-next season and after next season and all in prep for 2026, you want to have MLS buzzing as a product as we head into the World Cup where all eyes are on us as a country. And I think now is the time you've got to invest in this league if you want it to get where it's supposed to go, because from 2026, it's a trampoline, man. Look what happened in 94. Things take off. People generate interest. They start to care more about what happens domestically here. So why not invest now and strike while the iron's hot? I think you'd be doing it late if you wait until after 2026. I hope this is the beginning of more to come from the MLS and kind of loosening things up from a financial perspective to make sure the MLS is humming by 2026.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. This league is only on the up and up. It's good to get in now. It's good to see that they're, like I said, just putting money back into it. So it's only positive from here. Hopefully these rules and GAM, TAM, and all this starts to get a little bit lifted and becomes more regular. But for right now, with what the money they have, I think they're doing it. They're doing the best they can. And I like to see that we're starting to grow into it. But Jake, that rounds us out today. Thank you all for listening, taking us through all of the news for City, the Leagues Cup preview, recap into the Olympics and into some of these new rules for the MLS. Is there anything else you have final thoughts on?
Plug for us. We are working on some really freaking cool interviews behind the scenes, and you've got to stay close because you guys might be shocked at some of these. So make sure you are following us on X.
It's going to be a busy couple of weeks for us. Obviously after Leagues Cup and kind of even during Leagues Cup with these interviews and some of the things that we're working on and starting to connect on hope for the holidays this year as well. So everybody stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun for us coming up, and I'm extremely excited to do some of these interviews and upcoming things with you all.
All for City.